What's still missing from the Falcons roster after the 2023 NFL Draft? Even though Atlanta was one of the big spenders in free agency, they brought in 12 more rookies, but how does that affect them with OTAs just around the corner? Earlier this week, Scott Bair laid out the current state of the 2023 Falcons roster after the first waves of free agency and draft weekend. However, as we all know, this list will continue to develop. The free agency market undergoes a post-draft overhaul. Pricing for older veterans changes quite a bit, and the needs of organizations change as well. The draft has the power to drastically change those circumstances. The Falcons already have a pretty complete team, having spent millions of dollars in free agency to actively improve their defense. The defense, barring a few returning starters, will look significantly different than the last couple of years with a lot of turnover. Offensively, the 2022 Falcons offensive line almost entirely returns, with Chris Lindstrom receiving a contract extension and Kaleb McGary signing a 3-year deal. Jake Matthews signed his extension last year, while Drew Dalman is still on his rookie contract. With Desmond Ridder leading the charge, the Falcons have a wide range of targets for him, including Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and newly acquired wide receivers Scotty Miller, Mac Hollins and tight end Jonas Smith. And let's not forget the running backs, Tyler Allgeier, Cordarrelle Patterson and, of course, Bijan Robinson. This list is well laid out, and it's surprising that we can already say this about Atlanta on May 4th, as it's been a while since they've been this organized. However, there's no reason to get too comfortable, as the 90-man roster that teams start training camp with is always subject to change before camp begins. With that in mind, what parts of this list, right now, could need continued reinforcement? I'm glad you asked, because I have some ideas. The Falcons selected at least one receiver in this year's draft, but I still think they could use one more, or even two. I know this may sound like overkill. I thought selecting a wide receiver in the second or third round was an obvious choice, but it didn't happen. Instead, the Falcons prioritized the line of scrimmage in the draft and relied on free agency to help them bolster the position. On Thursday, the Falcons signed former Georgia guard Penny Hart to a 1-year deal to bolster their wide receiver roster. He will join Miller and Hollins, both acquired in free agency. With the addition of London, Kaderil Hodge and Frank Darby, the team has quite a room full of receivers. However, to be honest, I still think it would be nice to have one more player in that position. According to overtrecap.com, the Falcons have about $14 million in salary cap space, but that figure doesn't include the necessary adjustments to the draft class, which will consume a large portion of that amount. Therefore, there is not much money left for new acquisitions, unless adjustments are made to current contracts or some negotiation takes place. Still, it wouldn't hurt to add another tall, agile receiver to the team before training starts. There currently doesn't seem to be a clear number 2 after London, and bringing more options into camp would increase the chances of finding that second key player before the season starts. I am a firm believer that it never hurts to have extra bodies in high school. Last year saw the Falcons struggle to make up for the absences of Casey Hayward and A.J. Terrell during parts of the season. So if I were the Falcons, I wouldn't want that to happen again in 2023. So if they want to add more depth to their secondary group, that's fine with me. The safety position looks to be in good shape, with Jesse Bates III joining Richie Grant and Jalen Hawkins. But would it be possible to add more players to that position? Yes, even with the Falcons paying Bates what they are. However, as far as cornerbacks are concerned, the situation is a little different in my opinion. Sure, Terrell is there, but they also acquired Jeff Okudah through a trade with Detroit and Mike Hughes in the free agency market. Both have battled numerous injuries in their careers, so we're not quite sure what to expect from them. Are they on the cusp of a reinvigorated career? Nobody knows yet, especially since they haven't had the opportunity to play like the Falcons yet. So depth in this position, both on the outside and in the slot, is essential for the Falcons. If they want to add more players to compete in that position during training camp, I would support them. Offensive line left guard. Here's the information we have on the Falcons' offensive line. Most of the 2022 group is coming back, and the Falcons drafted 2 offensive linemen. According to Spotrac, they are one of the biggest spenders in the league when it comes to active offensive line contracts, which makes sense considering their moves last and this offseason. However, there is still concern over the left guard position, which is, once again, up for grabs in the Falcons' new season. Do the Falcons already have a starter in mind for the left guard position? It is certainly possible. But I don't think it would be a bad thing to bring in another veteran to compete for the spot. Matt Hennessy is a strong candidate for the starting job, as the Falcons gave him opportunities at left guard last season when Elijah Wilkinson was injured. Plus, there's Matthew Bergeron, a forward the Falcons drafted in the second round of the last draft. Although he played exclusively at tackle in college, the Falcons plan to move him to the left guard position.